Hi everyone, it's Isaac Jury here from Tidy HQ. Welcome to COVID-19 and your community plan. Before we get started, we'll just do a little housekeeping. Ask questions, please, throughout the Q&A. There's a module, throughout the presentation, there's a QA module that will answer as many of these questions as we can at the end of the webinar. Check out other resources in the webinar console for additional content. This presentation will be available for you after the presentation. We will send you a follow-up email with some links and also this PDF as well. My name is Isaac Jury. I'm the CEO and founder of Tidy HQ. I've been running this platform for nearly a decade, dealing with thousands of administrators from all over the world. Lots of different organisations use Tidy. Before that, I was on multiple committees, be it sporting clubs, university groups, and other social organisations. So I understand where many of you might be coming from. Today, we're covering our current scenario with respect to community organisations. We'll be covering off three different areas of planning, proceeding, and then pivoting as an organisation and as a leader, as a community, as a committee, as an administration team. So first of all, let's cover off leadership. Everyone's feeling incredibly anxious. It's a very complex subject. I don't want to get into it because that's not what we're here for. There's enough news organisations and medical people out there that are adding to this feeling of complexity. So it's critical for you to keep it simple. If you've got a complex problem, it's very important to have a simple plan, a clear, actionable plan to have in place. Understand your position, understand your insurance coverage, understand what technology needs that you might have, understand your financial position. We'll be covering a few more of these as we go. Prepare for your new world, your virtual working environments that we will be operating in presumably for the following months. I don't pretend to know what will be happening over the coming months or how long this might last. Presumably it's going to be close to 6 months plus from everything that we hear, but be it weeks or months, we need to prepare for a virtual working environment. Moving all documents and information to cloud-based systems, we've seen over in the US, a few non-profit community organisations have some of their leadership team come down with the virus, and with it went a whole lot of information because they didn't have that level of redundancy or governance within their processes. So it's really critical to upload things into communal work environments and workspaces so that it is accessible to other people. Obviously, it's just good sanitary, good governance, etc., to have these sorts of things in place anyway. Align your organisation with experts to answer questions. Don't go out on a limb and pretend that you're the medical expert or your organisation is expounding details that really should be getting communicated through government, through scientists, medical people, etc. Really important to know your position and understand where that ends. So just to reiterate, keep it simple. It is the most common sense thing, I suppose you can say, but a lot of people try and overcomplicate what is already a complex subject. So it's very important to keep it simple. Let's talk about a plan. So the plan needs to revolve around 4 areas as we see it. So continuity, how is your organisation going to continue? How is continuity being best served through your insurance, through your finance, through your sponsors and through your members? How are all of these things going to keep on occurring over the next few months? Collaboration, how are you working with others on your administration team? How are you collaborating online, be it via video calls or documentation or through platforms, etc.? Collaboration obviously extends beyond your administration team and also to your membership. So your members need to collaborate. There's other words for it, but they need to be able to get together and communicate and keep accessing that passion that brought everyone together in the first place. Coverage refers to a few things, but primarily the nuts and bolts. That is, again, your insurance, your legal, your financial coverage, making sure that your sponsors are all happy. Your member base, we're seeing quite large organisations trying to handle members and members wanting to cancel memberships. We're seeing quite a few organisations with their sponsors trying to leave because everyone's feeling this pain. It doesn't make much sense to be letting go of employees but retaining the sponsorship for the club. So coverage covers those areas. And finally, culture. You already have a culture in your organisation. The way that you handle this next period of time further shapes that culture, both as a leadership team with your committee or your board, and then further how you're handling your members and corresponding with those members, how you're creating environments for those members to still get on and enjoy each other's company, etc. That's the culture, and you need to have a plan as to how best to handle that culture. So everyone is urged to work from home. So you could break this plan into phases that correlate with how the COVID-19 is evolving. But given most of our organisations are smaller clubs, we're typically talking about groups that don't have thousands of employees or anything like that. So we, again, try and keep it super simple so everyone on the committee knows exactly, or on the board knows exactly what's going on. So primarily everyone's urged to work from home. It's been communicated relatively explicitly through the various mediums around the world. Everyone needs to work from home. So no in-person meetings for committee meetings or board meetings or anything of that nature. We'll be talking through some of the tools that you can use to facilitate these sorts of things. Finances. Obviously, everyone is stressed about the financial position of the organisation. And I suppose more specifically, everyone's concerned about their own personal financial position. So it's worthwhile understanding what those pressures are, both as an organisation, as individuals, as sponsors, and reduce your costs primarily, and then save sponsorships, or at least understand their position. Maybe you can help them. Maybe you can put their sponsorship on hold whilst you help them through this position. My feeling is that majority of our customers, our community clubs, our sporting clubs, university groups, various associations, industry associations, etc., you will all still be here in 6 months. The position that you have, or how well facilitated or furnished you are in 6 months' time, is the big question mark. But we will be there. It's just how well you're going to be there, and presumably, hopefully, your sponsors will be there as well. So if you can all help each other out, you'll be in a stronger position in 6+ months' time. The government, all governments around the world are offering various loans, funds and grants to non-profits and to business, of course. I would be setting up a subcommittee for both the finances as well as grants or loans and other funding mechanisms that the government is putting in place. Some of them are quite generous for non-profits. So getting a working group or working committee together to cover off these two areas, I feel, is very important for you. And you should be getting something in place as soon as you can. Leave more detailed communication to peak bodies, to government, to medical, the medical fraternity. Don't try and step on their toes, but you need to keep communicating to your members and to each other. And flowing from that is keeping your members motivated. We've talked to quite a few clubs over the last few weeks as to how they're feeling and how they're handling this new environment. And one of the big concerns after finances is, how do we keep our administration on track? And also, how do we keep members motivated? how do we keep engaging with our members and make sure that they're staying fit for sports clubs or staying engaged with various pieces of content for non-sporting organisations. And you can motivate people in different ways. You can just get a conversation going. A lot of people are feeling already a little overwhelmed with all the news and all the information that's coming down. A lot of people want a break from all that news. A lot of people are feeling saturated, I think. And it was already before this crisis, your organisation was typically an excuse to get away from their daily grind. So you can further lean on that and ask for photos of their home working space, their favourite quarantine recipes or snacks. You can start communal video calls and things of that nature. We'll go through a few other ideas as well. So in this particular time, the real skills matter, as we're seeing from world leaders, both domestically and around the world. The way that you display and relate right now, the ability to hold it all together, to lead, to bring insight and to care about your interactions is critical right now. And everyone is being pushed to only focus on the easily measured. And you can see it in the news reports, but each of us, when you get down to talking to your members and talking to each other, it becomes very apparent very quickly that the human elements are critical right now. And I've always felt that community organisations hold a trump card in this respect, that you can relate to them at a level that many government type organisations cannot. That is, you have an interest that is a genuine passion for your members, and you can definitely lean on that in this time, and you can also be human in this time as well a whole lot more easily. Let's run through some examples so you can proceed and action some of these ideas that we've thrown up there. So video calls with leadership groups. So there's different types of leadership groups depending on your organisation. So a leadership group could be your key administrators, that is your committee or your immediate board. Quite a few groups have extended committees. So going from the executive leadership group of say 5, there's usually an extended committee or board group of up to 20. They contain the subcommittees for finance and other events, etc. But there's other leadership groups for organisations such as sporting clubs. You might have captains, team captains, and coaches as a leadership group. And they can each be running video calls where they might be inviting the whole club. They might be inviting just their team. And the idea is to provoke and promote Q&A amongst each other and to try and get everyone on board and coming along for this journey, because we are literally like never before all in the same boat and probably just feeling as anxious as each other as part of this journey. Some ideas around how to better engage with your members. So video calls around exercise, yoga, meditation. I point out these 3 mainly because of the anxiety levels and now having to be restricted to our homes, and will probably be more so over the coming weeks and months. Mental health and other anxieties and physical health are going to be important, and you can play a part in that. You can also have video calls around specific exercises or specific interests. Our law societies might be talking about specific law examples that are coming out of this period, and there's some really interesting ones. Some of our car clubs can, do reviews on specific models of cars. And we're already seeing that, one great example, a football club can partner up with the local yoga studio. Yoga studios have lots of teachers that are looking for things to do because they can't do it. They're scratching their head and trying to promote themselves on YouTube or Facebook or what have you. It's an opportunity to partner with them, who knows, it could be a long-term partnership after all this is settled. But there's a real opportunity to partner with some other groups that can help with it. We've seen some play groups, for example, or schools doing video calls for reading books and having story time, a bit like School of the Air here in Australia, and various play school groups and things of that nature as well. So there's a myriad of ideas that once your committee gets around the table, I'm sure they'll fall out of those discussions. Get an agreement to post X number of times per week. So one could be informative as to what is happening in the broader sort of macro environment around that club. So for sporting clubs, it might be around what is happening with the season being postponed or cancelled or what have you. It could be about what the local league or local government is doing with the organisation to help them, hopefully. You could have some fun, one funny post, try and keep it light, maybe one video group call, or things of that nature. Establish WhatsApp or Facebook or Telegram group, so an instant messaging group to keep communication going beyond official comms. So I'm in one, for example, a Telegram group that has members around the world. And it is fun, it is lighthearted, and there is plenty of banter, which goes well and truly beyond the official communications that a Facebook page, for example, might be putting out there. So let's get on to some specific tools. Tidy HQ can get your team and operations onto the cloud, as discussed before, getting all your documentation, operations, what each role does, what tasks happen within the organisation, things of that nature is very important for you. Video calling, so Zoom is probably the flavour of the month, a good month to be the flavour of the month. There's other services like Whereby, GoToMeeting, Skype, etc., which are all quite good as well. We are using Zoom obviously for our calls and webinars. We do also use Whereby. They've got different pricing models. Tidy is already integrating Zoom into meetings and likely into events as well to help you facilitate some of these things that we've just touched on. Another service is Google Docs or Google Sheets, which is like Microsoft Excel. These are online documents, collaborative documents that you and the rest of the committee or board can work on together. It beats trying to have version control of a Microsoft Word document or a Microsoft Excel document, in my experience. And there's obviously alternatives to Google Docs out there as well. And there's free open source versions of that as well. So streaming content. So you can stream with YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. Facebook presumably is where a bunch of your members are. More and more people aren't using Facebook, which is why I raise YouTube. YouTube is great because people are using it more and more like a TV, which is handy. Twitch is something that you may not be familiar with. It's what many of the kids have been, and not so young, have been broadcasting video games on. So for organisations that might want to watch an old 1992 Premiership game together, they can stream it on Twitch, and you can all sort of watch it together and banter together and commentate together and things of that nature. So there are a couple of options for you to help with streaming to your broader audience. For email communication, obviously Tidy can do it, but you can also integrate in with MailChimp. There's other providers out there such as MadMimi, Constant Contact, and other groups as well. Pricing wise, they're all relatively similar. MailChimp offers a bucket load of templates and analytics and all those sorts of things. They're probably the benchmark when it comes to email communication, primarily for your newsletters and things like that to dress it all up. Instant messaging wise, I do think that you need to have instant messaging as part of your toolbox. there are tools like Facebook Messenger. As I said, the problem that we've seen with Facebook Messenger is that more and more people are leaving Facebook Messenger. That being said, we have quite a few groups that only use Facebook Messenger to get things organised. So understand who your audience is and who your membership is. WhatsApp is obviously also owned by Facebook, and as a result, Telegram is also there because that's the opposite end of Facebook. And with those instant messaging, you can set up groups for your different teams or different interest groups that you might have, subsets of your membership. And that way you can communicate, you can share videos and new memes and images and things of that nature through instant messaging. And finally, finances. So obviously Tidy does very simple cash book reporting. For more advanced financial management, if you've got assets, liabilities, payroll, things of that nature, you'll need to get something a little bit more powerful. Tools such as Xero, MyOb, Quicken are all really helpful tools. Tidy has been integrating in with Xero, and we do hope to make that live later this year. So your organisation has an advantage, which I've touched on quite a few times throughout the course of this webinar, and that is that you have a distinct advantage of being an interest outside of the daily grind. People are concerned about their employment. We obviously have millions of people unemployed as a result of decisions over the last few weeks, and that will probably get worse before it gets better. The advantage that you have is that you might have been a football club and people resort to or revert to football as a way out, as an escape mechanism. And you can leverage on that escape mechanism to remain positive, remain lighthearted, use some of that Australian humour to keep the conversation going and to let people talk about things other than this virus. It's a distinct advantage that you have. So what are you pivoting away from? So presumably you've already cancelled your physical events, your face-to-face events. If you haven't already, move them on to online webinars and group calls. You can still run most of these events, but you might need to get creative and move them somehow to an online webinar or group call. Tell stories. So if you're unsure, or if your leadership group, if your coaches or various subcommittees aren't too sure as to how to run a webinar, the easiest way to describe it to get them started is to let them know to tell a story. You need to setting up a webinar is all about a good book. So an opening, what's going to engage or what's going to inspire some questions and answers and discussion. And then how do we close it? Where do we close it? And how long do you plan the webinar to go? There are some real basics to help people that all of a sudden are tasked with this new job of facilitating a webinar, something that's completely new and foreign to most of us. But at the crux of it, it's all about telling stories and facilitating a collaborative environment for your members, which is the next point. If you can create a collaborative environment, be it through Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or YouTube or WhatsApp groups, etc., you'll be winning. And leaning on various media, such as video or memes or what have you, or just, the reality of what we're going through right now is something that you should lean on. Make sure that you're talking to your local and state leaders. So if you're a local sports club, make sure you're talking to your local government. They are talking to us. We're talking to national and peak sporting bodies, for example, and they're just as lost as you are, if hopefully they're not hearing, but they need you to tell them as well what, keeping it positive, but what you're needing, what you're requiring. So make sure you open up that communication to your local and state leaders and let them know how they can help, because they're scratching their heads. This thing is moving so fast that a lot of them are, as we've seen from our leaders, it's a very complex environment that they're trying to wade through. So make sure that you are talking with them. If there's an opportunity, if you own club rooms or things of that nature, making sure that you can try and work through any fees that you might have to pay them, or putting a pause on it, or something of that nature. And finally, ask your sponsors what you can do for them. So your sponsors are hurting. I can almost guarantee it. If they haven't pulled the pin already, it may just be a matter of time. So if you can be proactive with them, if you can afford to be proactive with them, put their sponsorship on hold for 6, 12 months, or something along those lines, and make sure that you've got someone tasked with this job over the next few weeks to look after your sponsors, ask how you can help them potentially. Again, a bit like the point above, everyone's feeling a bit lost, and sponsors are usually, range from small to large businesses, but they're struggling just as much as you are. So let's talk about some of the what nots to do's. So don't disappear on your team and members. This is a time for you to step up and step forward, and genuinely lead your organisation. And I'd go back to the first point of keeping it incredibly simple. This is a complex problem, so it needs a simple solution. Don't ignore your finances, insurances, and other stakeholders. Make sure that, I would be setting up subcommittees for these areas to ensure that people are focused in on that and they're very clear about what is going on with it all. Do not go about this alone. So reach out for help. There are lots and lots of resources out there, which speaks to the next point. Don't reinvent the wheel. The internet's a big, broad place, and there's lots of resources that government departments are offering resources on. We were talking to our state government here, the Victorian government, and they are looking at how they can help these organisations. And they're already putting out various resources that clubs can then use and pass on to their organisation if they need to. And I highlight the word need to. And don't forget, finally, to take care of yourself. So presumably you're watching this because you're a leader of your organisation, and people are looking to you to lead them and to guide the organisation, to guide your members and other stakeholders. So it's really critical that you don't forget to take care of yourself. Tidy is primarily a remote company. We've been working remotely for a long, long time, and we've learnt over the years that it does no good to anyone if you're burning yourself out, and if you aren't eating properly, sleeping properly, getting some mental health, some meditation, some quiet time, etc., which can be hard when the family's living on top of you. But if you aren't taking care of yourself, there's no chance that you can take care of others, and others will be looking to you to help them. We're also here to help. Tidy is going to be publishing a few more webinars around working remotely. Please check your email, and we are available for a private consultation with us. We'll be sending out an email with a link to this presentation, as well as a link to find a time for a private consultation should you want it. And if you are looking for more tips on remote work, we will be offering a new webinar in the coming weeks and days.